What's up? Welcome back to Steel City Roundtable. I am your host, Mark Kneebone, coming to you from the beautiful Pittsburgh, PA suburb of Monroeville. You guys don't know where the fuck that is. But anyway, I got a really great dude on today. I met him online as I meet all the amazing people that I talk to on this show. I want to introduce you to a gentleman out of Texas, the Longhorn State, Mr. Scottie Gassner. Scottie, what's up, brother?
How you doing, sir?
Uh,
Austin, Texas, Texas Longhorn. Hook 'em, hook 'em.
yeah, the home of recovery. The home of recovery down there.
Lot of big, huge recovery community here. It's like it's amazing. It's really incredible. And like, I'm on the outside of it, connected to it, but on the outside of it, and I feel like it's genuine, and that's really cool.
Yeah. So Scotty, we met through, I believe it was Instagram. I think if I remember correctly, I reached out to you because at the time what I was doing is I was reaching out to people that I saw their Instagram and I liked it, and I was reaching out to try to do collaborations, and you were gracious enough to respond. So thank you for that. And
Yes, sir.
then we did this tap dance back and forth. I moved. I had to cancel on you twice, and if I were you, I'd have been like, "Fuck this guy, he isn't serious." But you stuck around, and I appreciate it. Why don't you tell people what you do and what you're about?
Well, first of all, let me say that it is not a problem to get this podcast scheduled. If we're not giving people space and grace for the things that they need to try to make a good interaction happening, then what are we doing here? You know what I mean?
I
So
agree.
when you
I
were like,
agree.
have to reschedule, I'm like, man, like stuff happens. Like I don't know this guy. I don't know what he's going through. I don't know how difficult this is for him. But if I give him a little grace, we'll make this thing happen. And then here we are, right?
Yes, sir. Determination is how you get through everything.
Yeah, and how you approach it too. So, I didn't approach it with like, "Oh, like fuck this guy." I approached it with like, "What would I want in a situation where these things are happening to me?" Because you had to go to work like one of the days, I think, and
Mhm.
then you moved, right? And I even texted you. I'll go, "Hey, are you good for tomorrow?" You go, "Actually, I'm not." I was like, "Well, cool. Just let me know. We can, you know what I'm saying?" But that's
Yeah,
how we're supposed to be with people. That's what community is in a sense. But anyways,
I
my name
appreciate it.
is my name is Scottie G. I You can find everything I do at heyjustbe.com. So like heyjustbe.com, you can find everything there. But what you will find there is this. So after I say all this, you might want to go back and look because it's not going to all make sense probably in the beginning. But I'm what you call a functional aging specialist. So I help people age well, and I do that through kind of three parts of their life. And I have this whole thing. So that's what I do for my day job. And then I also have a podcast called Just Be with Scottie G, where people come into my house, we eat dinner, we hang out, and then we have a podcast together. And I try to create an environment where we can have real, real genuine conversations that are like needed, even when they're difficult. But because we're showing up at the same place for the same reasons of enjoying conversation, stuff like that, we have a good, meaningful conversations. And a lot of times it happens. So that's really great, and a lot of times it doesn't get recorded because I forget to press record. But other than that, it's awesome.
Well, what really drew me to you is your podcast because, I like to watch other people's podcasts to see what I'm doing wrong, and it's pretty much everything. Um, so, the fact that you do your podcast and don't hit record, that's like a really interesting thing I want to talk about. Like,
Okay.
I have a co-host, Natalie Snyder, who's a criminal defense attorney here in Pittsburgh, and she's with me like a couple, three times a month. And we usually talk about a lot of things, and one of our biggest things is having open lines of communication. We believe that 99% of the society's problems would be resolved if people would just be in a open and friendly communicative atmosphere, as in like active listening and not just talking at each other and hearing what the issues are and discussing it. So for me, it's very important that we keep those lines of communication open. So tell me, how you got started with your podcast and the whole idea of how you do it.
So it was pandemic. And this studio is my garage. And
Yeah.
so my girlfriend is a musician. And I was trying to build during the pandemic, we are trying to build a space that she could like come and play and practice and like stuff like that. Right. So So I started building out the garage for her. And, I don't know if you've ever been around musicians before, but they're very particular about things and stuff. And especially if they're artists at the truest form. And so she was like, I hate the acoustics in here. And I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do with this thing that I just built, And
Yeah.
so me and a buddy started talking about like doing a podcast. And so initially it was just kind of like, I didn't even really know. I mean, on some level, I still don't know really what I'm doing because there's a constant evolution. But in the beginning, it was just, I was going to like, just see if I could get anybody to come in my house and do this rigmarole of a thing that what they do when they come, which is the concept of when you, the example, like a big Italian family, or when you go into like Hispanic homes or like Asian homes, a lot of times there's like multiple generations and they feed you and like you're their guest and like they're welcoming and if you drink they provide beverage and then y'all just hang out and enjoy, right? And so could I recreate that on the podcast? So when I initially started, I had these huge dreams and I settled into what I do now, which is this kind of lunch or dinner, depending on what time I record, and a kind of a conversation.
Yeah, I think that's what we all do when we start this game called podcasting is we have these big visions and these big plans and you get kicked in the teeth after like the first week. You're like, shit, I think I'm in over my head. How do I get this thing rolling? I think I dumped 6,500 into this thing last year alone, buying the wrong shit and sitting there going, why isn't this working? What am I, stupid? Like, if Joe Rogan could do this shit, so can I. He's been punched in the head like 1,000 times, and finally you get to that point where realism sets in and goes, this is a competitive market. Even if you're doing it not to make a profit, which is why I'm here. I mean, granted, don't get me wrong, if someone wants to sponsor me, I'm down. But I do this because it's like my AA now. It's where I come to get stuff off of my chest too, and listening to other people talk makes me feel better. So it's like it's regenerative for me to do this every week when I do it. So I really think the way you do it is awesome. I'd love to come down there sometime, but being up in Pennsylvania, it's tough to get down to Texas. But you got a lot of really good podcasts coming out of there right now. You've got Two Addicts and a Moron. You've got the I Am Redemption podcast with Sean Livingston, which is awesome. He was a guest up here. You got you. I mean, you've got a huge podcasting network down there. So I guess this long-winded diatribe gets to the point of like you have a lot of input into what you're doing if you want it. Like you got a ton of guys down there that are doing good work and can give you some really pointers. So have you used the network down there to get better or to change or to, set your setup up?
Oh yeah. I actually the gym I work out at uh, uh is it oh it's Mike. He works out at the gym that I work. Two Addicts and a Moron. He works out at the gym that I work out at, right? So I see that guy all the time. We do podcast talk. I'll meet up with Sean. We'll do podcast talk, swap ideas and stuff like that. And I remember initially when I first met Sean, like I'm the kind of person like I don't man, I don't have anything in my head that you can't find on the internet. Like I'm not chat GPT. Like I just have kind of my ideas and what I do. And so I'm always willing to share ideas and just like say, like Sean was like, I'm gonna steal this idea from you. I'll go, bro, you're not stealing it, just take it. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, like I want if you get better and grow, I get better and grow. You know what I mean? It's gotta be the way it's like, the way, like Larry Bird pushed Magic Johnson, then they both were better. And so like when you can find that competitiveness is important, but it has to be done right and well. And so the group of guys down here that podcast and just the city in general is so generous to the arts and music and podcasting, South by Southwest and all the stuff that happens, So it's a great place to do things like this too.
Yeah, I mean, up here it's a little different, like we were talking before we started recording, like the recovery network up here is like the CIA. Like no secrets get out. If you it's also like the mafia. If you try to leave, they cut you at the knees. You know, um, like AA can be very difficult up here. If you buck against the system, if you buck against the ideas of, how you do the steps or, you know, if you're outside the box on things, they don't shun you, but they look at you like you got a dick sticking out of your forehead, you know. Um, It's crazy because like I have one guy that I go to up here. His name is Scott Siverts of the Burn Pit podcast, and he just caught a whole bunch of shit was on the news and everything because the people in Pittsburgh got upset because he was telling things how he saw it, and he's more on the political side. And people lost their shit and basically dumped their drawers and complained, and are shunning him because he's doing what he's given as a right as a citizen of the U.S. The freedom of speech. So I'm jealous as hell of the Austin community because like it is a community, like addicts, alcoholics, mental health, podcasting, like you all intermix and you all do stuff together. And up here it's different. It's literally like I had people upset with me when I told them I was going to do a podcast and talk about alcoholism.
Why were they upset?
I think it's more that like they were like, I wasn't sober very long, so what do I know?
Ah, yeah.
I tell you what I know. I know me, and I'm an alcoholic. So I can talk about alcoholism all I want because I know me and I know my story. And that's why I thought it was cool to have you come on, is because you're different. You know what I mean? You're doing a different thing. So I'm interested on the aging thing. Like, how did you get started? In my mind, I hear aging consultant. I hear, oh, you're tell people what diapers to buy when they get older. What Metamucil to take. What is it that you do as an aging consultant?
So, okay, so I work with people from 13 years old to like, my oldest client right now is in his 80s. I had a client that kind of really shifted everything for me. His name was Dave. When I started working with him, he was 79 and he passed away at 91 under my care. Not from what we did, but he old age, he just died, right? And so with all the time that I worked in just doing like physical training and like working with Dave, I realized that like, yeah, like, one, what we think of is being in good shape and staying in good shape, especially as you age, is totally different than the stereotypical things that we probably think we know, right? But then there's all two other parts to this whole thing. There's the whole mental fight that you have with yourself as you age. And this is talking about from the very, very beginning of your life. Like I'm working with a baseball kid right now, and his biggest problem is he can't control his temper, right? And so it totally impacts everything that he does, right? And so the mental part of your longevity is how you handle stress, how you handle anxiety. Do you abuse alcohol and drug? I mean, like, and that is a marathon, not a sprint, right?
Mhm.
And this is all stuff that I came to about working with Dave over the time that I did my own like longevity and life, and then my parents aging in front of me at the same time, right? And so I realized that this thing is like three parts. So it's the physical stuff that you do to take care of yourself. It's the mental stuff you do to take care of yourself, but you have to find purpose. You have to find reason to be and be alive, and it has to fulfill you in a way that money can't buy. And if you don't have that, you don't have reason to do anything. You don't have
Yeah.
reason to live. You don't have reason to work out. You don't have reason to take care of your mental health. And so at the end of Dave's life, he ultimately lost, at the very, very end, lost purpose, because now he's a 91-year-old guy. He can't hear anything. Everyone's ignoring him. He can't talk to people because he can't hear them. He's isolated. He's living on this island by himself, and it just slowly, killed him. So I came to all this with the way I kind of started my career, but it was really my own journey, because like I'm going to be 50. So it was like my own journey, my journey with Dave, the journey with my parents, and everything I was seeing around me that got me to be working in this space. And then, you know, the things my 13-year-old kid struggles with, or my 18-year-old kid struggles with, I mean, Dave struggled with. I mean, it's crazy. You wouldn't think that it would still be sticking, but the things that get stuck in our head at a real early age that we believe about ourselves or what we should be doing, they're hard to shake. You know what I mean? And to age, you have to shake some of that stuff because it's inevitable change.
Yeah, see, I'm gonna parallel this to alcoholism and mental health. I mean, there's a lot of similarities there. You said that your
100%.
man, you said that your man Dave, he was 91 and he isolated and he wasn't talking to people and he was all by himself. Like that's what we do as addicts. We separate ourselves from society because honestly, I think we don't feel we deserve to be part of it. At
Well,
least
you
that
lose
was.
you lose you lose worth, you lose purpose of why you're there.
Well, I mean, I was a cop for 12 years and, I love that job and that drove me and I still drank a shit ton. Even working as a cop, I had purpose. That was my purpose. The problem was, like a lot of people in my shoes, is that alcoholism and addiction is just a symptom of something much deeper. And I think you're diving into those things that are deeper, and you're probably going to save a lot of people from becoming addicts and alcoholics because you're showing them what it took me 49 years to learn. I just turned 51 like 3 weeks ago. Um, and when I was 39, I was acting like a 20-year-old that didn't have any responsibilities, and now, fast forward to 51, my purpose is this. My purpose is talking to people like you, and learning more about the world and the people that are out there doing good work. So, man, I think this is really cool. Um, do you have any like special certifications that you have to carry to do something like that?
Yeah, so I'm a certified life coach. I will shortly be accredited. There's a whole nother
Mhm.
level of stuff you got to get accredited. So I'll be shortly accredited. I'm a master trainer. I was a master trainer for the National Academy of Sports Medicine for a really long time. But my greatest certification is like I have a certification from the Gray Institute, which is it's a it's a applied functional science, which is like the way we move against gravity and this whole kind of thing, right? So I had I had I'd been a trainer for like we'll say like 15 years, just like straight physical, what you think of as a trainer, like all that kind of stuff. Start working with Dave and start to make that shift, you know what I mean? But then all along, I'm aging with Dave, and I've been in therapy myself, like therapy for like over 20 years, right? So like I've had a therapist off and on for over 20 years. So I understood, therapy talk, and I really love to read, and I read a lot of books, especially about how we are and what we do and why we do things, and trying to understand that. And so when I started doing all that, and then we bring back to the podcast gave me a lot of these conversations that just got me to think. And so it's like the podcast and this underside was kind of really pushing my business to make this huge shift. And I really didn't even like kind of realize it at the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. See, when I got out of rehab, I was like, oh, I want to be a personal trainer. Like, granted, I work a full time job. I'm a truck driver now. I work 60, 65 hours a week, 5 days a week. And I was like, oh, well, maybe I'll become a personal trainer. Oh, maybe I'll become a therapy, or oh, maybe I'll become like a volunteer at treatment centers. And the reality of the whole thing kicked me in the face like a mule kicking you in the nose. Like, I was like, dude, I don't have the time. I don't have the ability. I don't have the money to go back to school and get a master's degree. I don't have like all these things got in the way of that. And it literally was the universe telling me that I wasn't supposed to do those things. It pushed me towards podcasting, and I think that was an amazing learning experience. So your life experiences, your experiences with Dave and other people in your life basically pushed you in a direction, if I'm getting this right, to do
Yeah,
what you do now.
and I fought it for a really long time because at one point I really wanted to get away from fitness and just focus on like just life coaching and coaching people. But I realized that I had this really unique ability that like, when someone comes, I'm not always doing physical work with my clients, but it's if I am, it's more like rehab type stuff or preparation type stuff, or we're working through stuff. I work with people. A lot of these people are like really successful people that are, also really overweight, eat poorly, don't sleep, and stuff like that. And so sometimes it's a lot of rehab, but during that time, we were having conversations about like how are you doing? Like, I mean, why are you not trying to sleep? Well, why are you continuing to drink? Like we start having those conversations, and right. And then I would understand that like they don't have anything really not working towards anything. They have no they have even like just something they love to do for fun. You know what I mean? And when you started shaping those things into people's lives, it started really impacting every other part of their life, right? So, as they were working on their physical health, the more because I mean, physical health is 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 feet, 2 hands. If you're a capable person, you can make it, you can work out. Like there's no excuse, right? But the excuse comes from here, the excuse we make with our mind, right? So I realized that those two things are connected. And then I realized as we age as people, yes, we might have purpose now, but if we don't, like my baseball kid, right? Like this kid, so I mean, this kid is ranked in the top 20 in the United States, I think, right? And he's talking about like his goal is to play Major League Baseball. That's what he wants to do, right? And then the other day, he just told me the other day, he was just like, I don't even know if I want to do this anymore. And I said, bro, like
You've dedicated
you
all your
need to
life to it.
find the love again of this, because he looks at it like a job. It's his job right now to play baseball. That's his job, right? And he doesn't love it. I was like, when was the last time you loved baseball? He was like, I was like 8. And I go, you need to find that, my man. Because the worst thing you can do is prep for something your whole entire life to only find out you really don't want to do it.
Yeah, I mean, like when I was in law enforcement, I got to that point with law enforcement where I didn't love it anymore. I didn't like it anymore. I fucking hated it, and then I quit. Granted, my reasons for quitting were all mixed up in addiction and mental health issues, but it was one of the best decisions I've ever made. So, scenario, hypothetical, theoretically, a 51-year-old guy from Pittsburgh calls you on the phone and goes, Scottie G, I saw your shit on the internet. I have good mental health. I'm a recovering alcoholic. Oh, wait, that's me. Okay, it's me. A recovering alcoholic. And I used to be a gym guy. I used to sit at 8 to 10% body fat no matter what. I used to go to the gym religiously, and now I just don't want to go. What would be the theoretical if you're talking to this so and so? Like, what would you say to him? What would you ask him? Like, just give me a little rundown. Like, let's play a little game here.
All right. So do you have any ideas of why you don't want to go?
I think it's because when I was in addiction, my life was so screwed up. The gym was my only, next to work, the gym was my only steady, or his only steady. Um, and now that he is sober, he doesn't feel the need to do it anymore like that. Doesn't feel the need to throw himself into that so hard because he's not suffering from all the other bullshit.
So what I'm hearing you say is you don't want to go back to the workouts you were doing before.
I mean, I'm the fattest I've ever been. I'm the most out of shape I've ever been, and this is, yeah,
No,
we all know
no,
it's me.
but you were, but no, but you're saying that you're like, I don't want to put you said I don't want to put myself back through that, right?
Yeah, like I don't feel like I'm so comfortable with who I am now. I don't feel like I need to be in shape all the time in order to live happy.
True. You don't, by the way. And so what I would tell you, or do I tell this guy? Sorry, like not you, the guy.
Cat's out of the bag, everybody. It's me.
What I would say is there, if you're comfortable with who you are, I mean we could go through the reasons why it's good to like do resistance training and all that jazz, right? But like if someone comes to me and they go like, I'm not going to resistance train, okay? I'm not going to try to make them at that moment. I'm going to try to find wins wherever I can find them. So I go, well, but you do understand how important it is for you to get really good sleep. Yes, I do. You do understand how important it is for you to drink water, and yes,
Yeah,
I do.
all the basics.
All the very basic stuff, like, and can we just work in like a good 20-minute walk every day outside, no headphones if you have to, but like can you just be with yourself for 20 minutes and put yourself in an environment that's not the environment you're always in, so that it opens your mind to remind you how grateful and how awesome this whole place is. You know what I mean? Like, you just have to are you making time for yourself? And then when that happens, you know hopefully we're all addicts in some way. Hopefully you can get addicted to the right type of thing, which is like, man, I'm going to take these walks to, like, I might lift just once or twice a week, and I'm going to do some basic stretching so I can keep my body mobile. And I'm going to make sure that I go get a massage once a month, or I'm going to make sure I have a gym with a hot sauna. Like, there's so much, if we're just talking physical health, there's so much that goes into your physical health that you can do that is not the things you don't want to do. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
one of the things about the gym is when I first came back from rehab, it was a trigger for
Yeah,
me
I can see that.
because my car was a trigger because I drove drunk everywhere, so I got rid of that. I got rid of my car. My apartment was a trigger. I got rid of that and moved. Like, people, places, and things is what they tell you in AA is what you got to take care of. Um, and I used to go to the gym with like a 20 or 40 ounce tumbler vodka mixed with a pre workout. You know,
Wow.
to just,
Wow.
like I was drinking all the time. Like I was drinking for 2 days straight. I was drunk, like just hammering, when I was off. And, I lost the love of the gym. Like uh, I lost that desire to push myself like that because honestly, when I got sober, I like being sober and having clear eyes in my mental health. It makes me like not worry about that as much. Like I got a great girl who loves me for who I am, and like my life couldn't be better. You know, I personally don't get past that mental break of like, oh, I have to go to the gym. Like, oh, if I want to lose weight, I got to do this. Like, I'm so used to killing myself at the gym and going 6 days a week and sometimes twice a day that it's like I just don't even want to start again.
See,
But I
but
know I have to. I know I have to.
okay, so I'm 49, I'm gonna be 50. Okay. My workouts don't look like that anymore. You know what I mean? My workouts have like changed a lot because they have to, because now like I have a 4-year-old daughter. And so
Congratulations.
thank you. She's amazeballs. I love her. She's so awesome. She is a little mini of my girlfriend, which is super great. So now I know
And
who
he
both
does
of them
not
are.
have a gun to his head right now when he said that. He said that
No,
willingly
no.
and
I
then with
mean,
free will.
no, yeah, because hey, because it is my partner that allows me to do stuff like this. So I'm always so grateful. You know what I mean? She's always the one holding everything down. Like, and she wouldn't do that. Those are the things that mean the most to me. Anyways, I could go on. So, what were we talking? I don't even remember what we were talking about. What were we talking about?
Some guy drunk doesn't want to go back. I was saying that the
Oh,
gym,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
was a trigger, and
So my workouts are not like they used to be. My workouts are more of like, how can I feel this good for the rest of my life? Because now I'm at that halfway point where, like, I mean, we could say it's like here and then going back down. And maybe it's more like here, I get to 60 and it's going down, but eventually it's going down. So how can I slow that decline? Like I'm in a
okay.
I'm in a place of like, how do I make myself feel good? How do I chase my daughter around? Like how do I show up for my friends and my clients because my body feels good because I don't feel like shit. And so, you know, I drink occasionally. Like I'll have a beer here on the podcast or something like that, but I really don't drink, right? But when I do drink, I notice how my body feels. And I'm always mind blown. And you could probably speak more of this than I could. I'm always mind blown, like that I was killing my body because I used to drink a lot, right? That I was just killing my body like that, wasn't getting sleep. I mean, torturing my body. And I didn't even realize it, how much I was torturing my body. And not drinking allows me, I don't want to say to be more relaxed about stuff, but I'll tell you this: my most successful clients mentally and physically are the ones that don't drink. I mean, it's that simple.
Yeah, I mean, drinking has a profound effect on your body. Example is, I was diagnosed with degenerative disc disorder in my L4, L5, and I went
Oof.
through this painful procedure called radio frequency ablation, where you have to go in twice to get it done, but you have to go in 2 times before to get tests done. And what they do is they jam these needles into the muscles around your spine, all the way down into the nerve beds. And those needles are hollow, and they have an electrode that goes down, and they burn your nerve beds. They kill them so that you won't feel pain for anywhere from 12 to 18 months. And I went through this. And if the dumb fuckers would have told me just to stop drinking, like I stopped drinking, and you're talking 2 years later, my back hurts once in a while, but nowhere near as bad as it hurt when I was drinking. I mean, alcohol just breeds inflammation like, babies. It just really messes you up. And so it's cool that you say that, how your body feels so much better when you're not drinking. Like people in addiction don't understand that we've become comfortable being uncomfortable. Like it's just
That's
normal to feel
that's
pain
right.
and to feel, depression and all these things. So back to the gym thing, like, I literally, I think it's a mental break where I am not as strong as I used to be because, I was stronger and fitter when I was a drunk, which is completely outside the norm, you know? And now, like, I'm not unhealthy, but like, I'm probably carrying 16, 18% body fat now, which I've never carried in my entire life. But for the first time, I've been okay with it. And I don't like
Because
that.
well,
I
you
don't like
probably
that.
fa- well, you probably, I mean, to be honest, that's probably a really healthy thing. You probably found your identity in yourself physically, but now that you are able to sit with yourself and be with yourself, you don't have to hold that physical, because I feel that too. I mean, like, the more I'm good with myself, the more I'm kind of like, yeah, like I don't care if I put on a couple extra pounds. I'm gonna
Yeah.
eat my kids' food.
Like me and my girlfriend went to the store last night. She had to get some fake press-on nails, and I had to sit there and stare and watch for 20 minutes while she went through every single one. And I'm like, just pick one. They're nails. Nobody gives a fuck. Yeah. And I end up walking out of there with 8 packs of fucking chocolate-covered donuts. Like, this is dinner. I am so happy right now. And when I was drinking, like, I was a strict dietitian. Like, I didn't, I either was doing keto or I was doing low carb, high protein. Like, I did not eat sugar. I did not eat chips. I did not eat anything. Now, like, I'll go downstairs in the freezer at like 2 in the morning, grab a container of Cool Whip and eat the whole damn thing and be like, I feel amazing. And now I'm going to bed.
You
You know
you mean you mean to tell you what you did?
what?
So alcohol is sugar.
Yeah,
So all you did is when you remove the alcohol, your sugar addiction went to sweets, right?
maybe. I always loved them. But
Well,
like,
I mean, but also they feed each other too. So I'll give you an example. Like we're talking about the difference between drinking and not drinking, right?
yeah,
Um, when I do have drinks, and I can have just like 2 drinks, just casually like 2 drinks. I'll come home from wherever I were, and I'll hit the pantry, and I'm eating sweets and stuff like that because I've turned on that sugar addiction, right? And so once it's turned on, it's hard to turn off. You know what I mean? And
I
so
thought it was just I love sugar. I love
no, it
sweet.
could.
Like,
I
I've
mean,
always
but
loved
look,
cakes and stuff like that. So I thought it was just like, I thought in my mind, it's me saying, hey, for 20 some years, you didn't allow yourself to eat shit that you love. So just eat it all and get fat. So maybe when I hit, like, I'm 230 right now, maybe when I hit like 270, then I'll have to go back to the old me and I'll have a motivation to do that. But, it's cool talking about this because it's cool just being okay. I used to say that, when I was driving a truck in my addiction, I was spending 24 hours a day with someone I hated,
ooh,
this guy,
yeah,
you know?
wow.
And then, like, I almost quit my job. Like, I was contemplating quitting altogether, and I make good money doing what I'm doing, and I like what I do. But I hated it back then because I wasn't able to sit with myself because I hated me. And then I came back to work and like I love my job now. Like there's nothing there, like you could give me a job right now and say, hey, listen, this police department wants to hire you tomorrow. I'd be like, yeah, go pound salt. Fuck you. Like I like what I do now. And you know what they say? If you like what you do, you never work a day in your life.
That's right.
But yeah, so like, these are the things I'm interested in because I like I really find it cool that this is what you do. I really find it cool that you help people, figure out how to age and it's not just a superficial thing. I can tell that you're like into this thing. Like it means a
Well,
lot to you to do the work you do.
it comes very natural to me to be with people like this and to do this job, like in a sense of like a caretaker. So like it's something that I do like very naturally. The hard part about that is like, being able to leave space for the people that are important in my life as well as my clients. That comes down to how I take care of myself. So like when that's part of this whole shift of my mindset of like how I take care of myself is not, and my clients, how I coach them too. But like, it's not just the physical stuff. It's there's just so much more. And like, even it's kind of a thing that, man, we could write a list so long of all the things that you need to do to stay alive, right? To be the most healthiest person on the planet, get up at this time, da, 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 ah, da, da, blah, blah. I mean, we could just, the list would just go out the door, right? But it really comes down to what do you want to do? What is important to you? What's the best for you? And what are you okay with leaving on the table?
Yeah.
Right. And that's kind of what I help people find a way to do for like the rest of their life, because ultimately I'm hoping that they'll take this and they'll go, okay, this is how I adapt to change as it comes on in my life, because it's constantly going to be here, and I get to decide. I get to decide what my life is and how wonderful it is, and what I put into it and what I don't. You get to decide all those things. And so showing people there's more choices than even you think there is.
I think
Some
what
people are
I'm
go
sorry, I didn't
ahead.
mean to interrupt you. Go ahead. I didn't mean to
No, I was
interrupt you.
just saying, I was gonna say is we get stuck in our mind of the stories we tell ourselves right? Like at the very, very beginning of this podcast, I can't let go of it. So I have to tell you, you said, you go, I like to watch other podcasts because I'm doing everything wrong and I want to see what they're doing. That's not the true story. The true story is that you do things your own unique, different way, and it's different. And you get to decide what that is. And you make decisions by learning from what you see and what you like of someone else to do. So it's not that you're doing it wrong. It's just you're doing it the Steel City Roundtable podcast way.
That's a trait I've always had.
Everybody, but this is, I didn't mean to pick on you.
No, this is good.
But
This is good.
this is the awareness that I bring. This is how I do my clients. This is what I do with my clients.
Give me your Venmo and I'll send my copay for my therapy session directly to you. No, like it's a trait I've always had. I've always been super critical of myself. And I think that's something I'm never gonna be able to break. Granted, now I have a lot less to be critical of because I'm not just running around like a total shitbag. But I'll always be that guy that sits there and goes, well, how has this guy got, 8,000 views and I have 8? Like I'm always going to think that I'm doing something wrong because, and this is, I think, a trait of society, like success is a pass fail. You're either successful or you're not. Everybody compares their success to the guy that's making it, and I have to remind myself on a daily that, this is a success that I reached out to you, you got back to me, and now we're doing a podcast together. Like
100%.
That's successful. Because if I was doing it completely messed up backwards, you'd be like, this guy's a joke. I'm not doing it. So, maybe it's the cop brain in me. I'm very, very difficult on myself. And my girlfriend tells me about it all the time, And second thing, you were talking about how there's so many things in life that you have to do to be healthy. And it's, I've revisited my life since I've been sober. Like now my days off, I don't go anywhere unless my girlfriend's with me. Like we spend basically 2 days together. I never ever in my lifetime, golf is like my favorite thing to do. And I've never ever taken somebody golfing with me. And she goes with me almost every time I go now.
Awesome.
Like I've learned to include people in my passions, even if they suck at it. I love you, honey. But yeah, like, it's crazy how the evolution of the mind follows the destruction of the body, like when you destroy your body.
They work and feed off each other too.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you're not trying both of them, if one starts to slip, the other one starts to go like even hold itself back in a little way. You know what I mean? And so like it's important that you're working on both of them the whole time.
Yeah. See, I'm used to when my mental health slacks, I'm used to saying, oh, I have to go to the gym because that helps my mental health. And now I'm in that weird part in my life where it's like, I don't really suffer like I did. I mean, I still have bad days, but now I get to choose whether it's going to remain a bad day. So I try to fix it. But even when I have the rough days, like my first thought isn't, oh my God, I have to go to the gym, and I think that's hard for me to get around. It's hard for me to grasp it. Like there's nothing I need to do but live, be. Like you say, just be, and
That's right.
That's a huge thing in recovery, being present, being present every day for the people you love and the people you care about and the people around you, to become present, I think, and you probably can confirm this, is a huge part of aging well, is, knowing that you have to be there for people. So you do what you have to do to be there.
I mean, 100%. I mean, like I'm kind of a nerd on meditation. And so, a lot of meditation is done to teach you how to pull yourself to the present. That's what it's for. It's not like I'm doing this thing to solve this thing. It's a practice. Like you practice, but it's an ever evolving practice. There's no end goal. Like it's always a practice. It's like the way you breathe. You just breathe. Like, I mean, it's just a practice, right? And so as you get older and the control that you have over your own life and everything surrounds you starts to get smaller, you know what I mean? You're going to want to, it's going to make you anxious. You're going to hold on to stuff. You're going to stress out on things you've never stressed out before. If you have parents, you've probably seen this happen, right? So the ability to center yourself and be present and understand that I've been on this planet for 70, 80 years. Like there's not much that's like really changed other than I don't understand these names and places like that's what's going to help you have longevity, and also ultimately it gives you space for purpose. And so, my favorite examples are these old people that are like 105, and like, you're like, oh, what kept you alive? They're like Dr. Pepper or whatever, whatever, that they're living life. They're not, they're being present. That's why they're alive. It's not the Dr. Pepper or the weird thing. That it's because they found purpose inside themselves, and they were able to live in the live in the present of being. And that's what it's all about. I mean, really.
Yeah, see, addicts and alcoholics live in the past and live in the future. Oh my God, I did this, and oh my God, what's going to happen next? Like,
Right.
I was
A lot of
constantly,
judgment. There's a lot of
yeah,
judgment on yourself. Yeah.
yeah, I was constantly like thinking of what was going to happen down the road that hadn't even started to be an issue yet. I lived in fear 24/7 of what I was going to do next and how it was going to screw up my life. And now, like, I wake up in the morning and it's like, oh, okay, I'm going to work, and that's the biggest thing on my plate. Oh, make sure I pay my bills. It's I don't have all the convoluted, interruptive thoughts that I used to have. Now, do you deal with a lot of people with mental health issues and addiction, or is it primarily, you know, that's not like a big thing that you see?
Well, again, we're all addicts on some level,
Uh-huh.
right? You should see my sneaker collection. It's out of control. It's something else. And so, as silly as it sounds, I had to recognize about myself and go, what is appropriate? You know what I mean? Do I need to get rid of sneakers altogether, or am I a person that can have a sneaker every once in a while? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so, on some level, we're all addicts, right? So, like, a lot of my clients, like, if I'm not coaching them through alcohol, it's food, or it's like working out too much, or it's like go go go, never sleep, never take a break, or it's all three. You know what I mean? So, like, I'm coaching through other types of addictions. But yeah, like, I mean, if you're not going to be with yourself, you'll find somewhere else to put that time, and usually we put it into something that's cool to get addicted to. So, your cell phone, I mean, cell phone, I sound like 105. Your iPhone or whatever, like when you're doom scrolling on Instagram, you're addicted to something. You know what I
Yeah, I
mean?
mean,
Like, and
yeah,
so,
I mean, I think in my second life, the one I'm living now, um, I try not to be addicted to anything. And I think that's one of the aversions I have. One of the things I have with the gym is like that was an addiction for me while I was in addiction.
100%, 100%, you nailed it. Yeah.
So, I try not to throw myself crazy at things like I used to. Like I have to consciously think like don't lose your shit over the podcast and don't work too much. Like everything in my life was an addiction. Like I was addicted to working, like I was never home. I was addicted to the gym. I'd work 16 hours and then go spend 2 hours at the gym and get like 2 hours sleep. Like, I don't live like that anymore. Like now if I sleep in, I'm like, "Oh, I missed the gym. Whoopee, big deal." And I mean, I know I got to work on that. I got to get back to that for me because the gym is an important part of my life. It always has been. I actually just bought a generic Peloton for the girlfriend, and I looked at it. I was like, that might be the start to get me back to exercising again. Just doing that a couple days a week in the basement. It's. I think, and I think you've seen this probably a lot too. Like as people get older, and as people, work through problems and work through scenarios in their life, the scars that are left behind, they're so deeply mentally ingrained that it takes deprogramming. It literally takes, sitting down and teaching yourself how to work through that problem and how to live differently. You know, Example, sobriety. I didn't know how to be sober. I hadn't been sober since I was 17. You know, my first few months was teaching myself that I can go to the gym and not drink. I can go golfing and not drink. I can, do my laundry when it needs to be done instead of letting it pile up for fucking 3 weeks. I can wash the dishes, like all the things that I neglected when I was drinking, are things that normal people did without thinking about. And I had to sit there and go, oh, I need to get that shit done, so life becomes much more stressful. So do you see in your clients as they progress in your program, do you see a change in mental mindset and focus?
Yeah. We'll go back to addiction, and we'll just say we'll say I have a handful of clients that, hmm, they might be an alcoholic. It's possible. Um, and I have to. It's a very slippery slope, especially when it's a paying client that's paying me. But that's also what they're paying me for. They're paying me for awareness and a little bit of like holding them responsible, unfortunately, and that like I'm looking out. I'm trying to help them age well. You know what I mean? So we have conversations around their drinking and their why, and it's slow, but like I'll give you an example. I had a client that I don't say we got in a fight about it, but like I was like, well, I kind of was like, I bet you can't stop drinking. Like I bet you can't. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and he was like, no, I can. How long? How long? And I was like 60 days, 30 days. I can't remember what it was. So he goes, okay, you're on. I mean, and this guy had like a whiskey every night. So so he's a huge Houston Astros fan, right? And he went to a World Series game sober. Okay, he doesn't do anything sober. If he's out, he's partying, right? He's turned up, right? And he went sober, and he cried on national TV, and he was on TV, and I saw him crying. I remember when he came back, I was like, "So what was that like, man? Like you were there, you were present, like you weren't clouded. You cried." And he was like, "Man, it was awesome." And then shortly after that, he went back to drinking, and I was like, "Dang." Like, I thought that moment, I thought that we had kind of reached a step, you know what I mean? But addiction is powerful no matter how it impacts you in your life. And so they're baby steps. So like now that same client, he's at a space where he's trying other stuff. Like he's like using maybe, like like psychedelics and using marijuana and stuff like that. But he's finally hearing what I've been telling him all this time, which is like, drinking's bad, man. Like it's real
Yeah.
bad. Like, I mean, it messes up your body, what it does on your body, wrecking it. Right. And then on top of that, you don't sleep. Like when you think that you are going to drink alcohol and you're going to go, that's what's going to help you go to bed because, like I need alcohol to go to bed. It's a sedative. And that's why you wake up at 3 a.m. and because it just puts you out for a little, you know what I'm saying? Like alcohol is bad. And so I'm very much in favor with my clients of finding alternatives that speak to them truly, that they feel like is a healthier version, because I would argue there's a lot other healthier options if that's something that you need other than even alcohol,
Yeah. Well, let me give you a little advice about alcoholics. We are master manipulators,
Oh yeah.
and we are goal oriented.
Oh yeah.
The goal normally is to do whatever it takes to get that substance. Like that's the goal.
That's an
But
addict, right?
you put a challenge in front of us, and we will stop drinking or stop using
Oh yeah.
just because we had a challenge, and it gives us a reason. The reason of living longer and having a healthy life doesn't factor into the programming. But you say, "I bet you can't stop drinking." I say, "Fuck you, you're on. Let's go."
Oh yeah.
You know. Second thing. So this is where we might disagree. I'm not a fan of medical marijuana. I'm just not.
No, but
Maybe.
let me say
Well,
it's
let me explain.
okay.
It's mostly because I can't use it as a
Oh
commercial truck driver. I
yeah.
think there's a
I
lot of
wouldn't be a fan
benefits to it.
either.
So I'm not a fan of the way it's set up now.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm against medical marijuana. I'm against the way they're treating it. You
Yeah.
know, so example, you know, the normal person could get a medical marijuana card like that, you know, but a truck driver, we can't have one because we can't have any THC in our system whatsoever. It is outlawed. It is against the federal regulations. So, I know that medical marijuana would help my anxiety. I know that it would help my inflammation and my joint pain. I know it would help my mood and my sleep, and it would do a lot of things for me. But because the government wants to control it, because the government's a bunch of fucking Nazis, you know, they don't allow people in certain positions in life in certain sectors to utilize that. Also, like CBD oil, you can't get a guarantee from any CBD oil company that you're not going to test positive.
That's
So
right.
therefore, truck drivers don't take it because the chance of testing positive is always there. It's very small. It probably will never happen. But, I don't use that because once again, the government's not getting their tax cut out of it because it's not regulated by the FDA, the CBD oil. So, you know, normal people that work jobs that are, I guess I would say safety sensitive, aren't allowed to use that stuff. Or if you use it, it's at your own risk of losing your job. So that's what I don't like about medical marijuana.
Well, uh, agreed. Um, and let me say, but my argument was going to be that I coach my clients to work with what's best for them, and marijuana isn't the best for everyone. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like not everybody responds well to it, but I can guarantee alcohol is bad for everybody. So
Yes,
like,
I agree.
so I'm always looking for alternatives outside of alcohol, right?
Well, you know why
But
alcohol is so acceptable? It's because the government gets their money from it.
oh,
You know,
100%. Yeah,
you
100%.
in Pennsylvania, you can't buy liquor outside of a state-run liquor store. You
Yeah.
know,
That used to be like that. Well, I guess it is still like that here. You
yeah,
can only buy liquor at the liquor store. Yeah.
listen, the government's all about killing you as long as they get their tax money. That's why they want to. That's why any of these conversations about legalizing any type of drug, like legalizing, microdosing, legalizing LSD, legalizing, heroin, legalizing whatever, they're only doing it because the government sees it like, hey, we got a problem with people dying. So if we can get our money out of them, it's okay if they die. We really don't give a shit. That's just my opinion. But I
Well,
have a lot of that.
here's the other thing. It's that their big money comes from prescription drugs. That's where the
Mhm.
government's big money comes from, right?
Yep.
But they ain't gonna let you have. They ain't gonna let you have anything, and so they're like, well, we're just gonna go ahead and take this too. We're gonna manage this too. We're not gonna let you have alternatives outside of what we're really trying to sell you. You know what I mean?
Well, there's things out there. There's peptides. I don't know if you're familiar with those, like
Yeah, yeah,
BPC
yeah.
157, and has great tests on anti-inflammation and muscle regrowth and mental health and like all these things. But if you go and look on the FDA's website on what is acceptable in the way of peptides, um, all the ones that have been showing real promise, like BPC 157, there's ones that are like Somorelin, which is a IHG growth factor. It helps with your growth hormone production. There's testosterone supplements to help with your testosterone. Like you cannot get those because the FDA does not accept them. And the only reason why they don't accept them is because Pfizer's not getting their money, and this politician is not getting the money greased back into their pocket. I said I'm not political, but I guess I am.
Nah, I mean, and I also think this is the way I always feel. It's like to think that our government, like that our government is the only like good guys and everybody else is a bad guy. Like it'd be more likely that we're all bad guys, but you just live in the best place of bad guys. You live in the I mean, I would rather live here in the United States than anywhere else. I mean, but this is place is just as evil as anywhere, place. I mean, it's just kind of part of the whole thing. You know what I mean? You can't have government without being evil.
Yeah, I mean, and not to stick on this long, but to steal money from the people that are working hard, the harder you work, the more you pay. The more you pay, the more you lose, the less you get back. Like they
Yeah.
just punish you for working hard. I lose more taxes when I have a good week because they see, oh, he made this much, we're going to take this much more. I think, when it comes to government, it's just we have a flawed system, like everybody,
Like
and
everybody.
it's there's no way to fix it. It's just to deal with it. But I don't like I don't like the fact that they're taking control of our personal liberties, and that's my biggest problem. So we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Um, so how long and like what kind of program? Like which do you have like set programs that you put people through, or is it kind of like I meet you, I talk to you, and then I figure out a program?
So I do evaluations with people, and usually what happens is through the initial evaluation, I can only see and hear what I can see and hear, and then if they end up signing on, usually I pick up like new stuff physically, mentally, obviously, whatever, right? And so, and they don't a lot of people are so unaware of what they're coming in with, even physically. Like I'll go, hey, like you ever broken a bone? And they'll be like, nah. And then we'll be like working 3 weeks in. They're like, oh yeah, well, I broke my foot this one time. And I was like, oh, like when we first met and I asked you, like, hey, have you broken anything? That wasn't, you know what I mean? Because they're not they're not walking around conscious like of themselves. They're just like kind of unconsciously going out there into the universe. And so you know part of what I try to do is bring people to themselves to notice these kind of things so they can start giving me feedback on what's going on with them, because really I'm basing everything off my intuition and what I see and possibly hear from them. The more information they give back to me, the better I can make it work for them. They'll make their program work for them, right? So I like I said, I have some people that they just travel a lot. and I see them like once or twice a week. And pretty much what I do with them once or twice a week is reverse engineering all the traveling they did. And essentially, you know what I mean? Because this is what's messing up their back. This is what's messing with their hips. This is what's causing stress to their shoulders. You know, how are they approaching their flights? Like, how are they going about their day? You know, you were talking about earlier, like having a hard time getting back to the gym. I really coach people that you should have it, ultimately, maybe it's all together or maybe it's split up, like an hour and a half to 2 hours of your active waking day that is just for you. I don't give a shit what you want to do with it. But like if you're going to go out and be the best person you could be and you're not taking any kind of time for yourself on the daily, then you're just, you know, you're just stacking debt until you explode on somebody. You know what I
So
mean? And as a human being, that's your responsibility, dude. That's not mine, right? So me taking care of myself is not only taking care of me, but it's how I take care of the other people around me that I impacted, that come in contact with. The guy at the convenience store that's being an a-hole. Well, maybe I just got a little bit more space to not be a dick back. You know what I mean? Because like, what's that going to give me? You know, why I'm going to carry around all that shit with me. I'm going to carry around all his bullshit on me. You know, so like that's what I really coach to my clients is that like you need to be taking time for yourself in some fashion. And the easiest one is physical exercise because you could just go on a walk. But I mean, there's all kinds of other stuff you could do with that time. And sometimes that time gets hijacked by your kids or your girlfriend or an accident when you're driving somewhere. So, like when you go, oh shit, man, I had all this stuff I had to do today, but I got in this accident. Instead of like losing your shit, go, well, you know, this is how I'm spending my hour and a half today that was supposed to be for me because this is unfortunate for today. Does that make sense?
yeah, I mean, I think that's a lost characteristics in people with alcoholism and mental health. You know, we don't like ourselves, so we don't want to be present just with ourselves. So
100%.
we fill our day with as much as possible, and that was a huge adjustment for me. You know, I came when I got home from treatment, like I had all this empty time, you know, that I filled with drinking and I didn't know what to do with it. You know, like now I come home from work at, you know, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, and depending on what time I get home, I kiss the girlfriend, I play with the dogs, I go downstairs and I play Call of Duty for an hour. You know, like that's my unwind time. And, you know, granted, that's hijacked my time from the gym because I'm an addict to that damn game. But, you know, I agree with you. I think we lose track of the fact that every person needs to be a person alone by themselves to rewind and adjust and re-energize. I think that's really important, and we should just call this episode "Be Present" because that's what we're talking about. You know,
100%.
you bring up some good points about how you know you have to reprogram the traveling. Like you have to get people back into like the present because they're just rushing, 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 rushing all the time. Do you find it like really difficult at times to listen to people talk? Because there's sometimes I listen to people talk and I'm like, you have no clue what shit is. Like you have no clue how bad life can get. You know, I was going to put a bullet in my head, you know, but that's a selfish part of me saying, you know, your shit isn't as bad as mine. Do you find it like, do you find, and I know that you probably might not be able to answer this the way I want you to, but do you find it sometimes, you know, you're just sitting there like your life isn't that bad? Like, you just got a couple things going on that
I
if you get
mean,
those things adjusted, you'll be fine.
I'm the kind of dude that like when I get in the shower every morning, I'm just like to myself, not out loud, to myself, I'm like, oh man, I'm so grateful that I have like hot water. I'm so grateful that I have this shower inside this house, that I have this beautiful family, that I live in this great neighborhood, that we're not at war, that my house is not being bombs dropped on it every day. And so when someone doesn't have an ability to be present, it gets really hard to be grateful because in that moment where this hot water's hitting me and I'm being very grateful, I'm very present. I know exactly where I'm at, right? And so they're gonna say a lot of stuff and be ungrateful because they're not present and aware. And so in that moment, as much as I would love to judge and go like, "Oh my God, do you not understand how great that we fucking have it? Like, do you not get it?" I go, where can I find a place to politely raise awareness about this? And maybe it comes along, and maybe I never get a chance to, or maybe it's like with a client, maybe it's 2 or 3 sessions from then because you know that stuff carries over. And so, you know, I look at it as like there's an opportunity here for me to kind of set a good example and give someone grace and space to be open. And maybe they say something that really lets me know what's really going on. Right?
So
Like,
how far
can
did
I
you
can I
dig in?
can I say something real quick?
Yeah, yeah,
Are you familiar with the shadow self? Do you know what the shadow self is?
I do not.
Okay. So the shadow self is basically the mark inside the Mark that you don't like. Everything about Mark you don't like is that dude, and he probably looks a certain way and he feels a certain way, and that Mark was in my opinion, short analysis. Your drinking was trying to, like, you were trying to drown that Mark. That's what you were trying to do. That shadow self, that person that's always fucking up, the person, the things you hate about yourself, you were trying to drown that away. But now y'all are friends. Y'all are becoming friends. You're understanding that part of Mark, so you don't need to drink as much, right? It's not the urge isn't there because you're getting whole with yourself and being present with everything that's Mark, not just the parts about Mark you like. Everything about Mark is what you're starting to like. Everything that he is, the good and the bad, you're getting right with it, so it makes it easier to be present.
I think you're right to an extent. I think you're definitely right at the end point that, I no longer have internal conflict
That's right.
on a daily basis. I don't have that struggle inside to do the right thing. Like, I'm going to do the right thing as I see it every single time now, because I'm able to think through every problem. I'm able to use logic instead of emotion to figure things out. My drinking, a lot of it was due to unprocessed trauma. It was
Yeah, yeah, of course.
things that I'd gone through, that I was never able to deal with, and instead of dealing with it, I had to drink to silence the voices in my head and to shut it off.
With
So I
shame,
think,
like
yeah,
there's
I
a
think
lot
it
of
was a
shame.
combination. I think it's a
Yeah,
combination of exactly what you're saying
yeah,
and an unresolved trauma, and I think
100%.
it's a very important point for people that are watching this. If you're watching this because you're an addict or an alcoholic, or you have mental health, or if you're watching this because you like what Scotty does, um, at the end of the day, you got to be happy with yourself, and you got to deal with whatever comes down the road. So if you got a problem, if you have an issue that's weighing on your mind and it's ruining your life, reach out, call a friend, talk to someone, email Scottie G, get on his website, email me, get on my website, and let us know you have problems. I guarantee you Scotty will help you and direct you to someone who can. And I will do the same. Just remember, you guys aren't alone out there. We're all suffering in one way or another, and we're all here to do it together. Together, we're stronger. Alone, we fail. That's what bottom line. But
100%.
so, what did you think when you saw this podcast? I'm curious. What was your first impression of what we're trying to do here? I like to ask
Um,
people.
I felt it was real and raw, and I like that everyone seemed to be authentically showing up to the table, because ultimately that's kind of like, that's my whole shtick, is like, be authentic, they'll adjust.
Mhm.
That's my whole thing, right? And so I like I like authenticity even when it's like horrible. Like, even
Yes.
when, like, when I hear like a podcast or something, I'm just like, oh my God, this is terrible. But I was like, I hope, like, in my mind, I hope that's them being the best version of them. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And so obviously, like, when I hear yours, it speaks a lot to, like, kind of what I'm doing. So you hear that authenticity, and so now I'm interested. You know what I mean? And so, and so I think one of them, I heard a little bit of your story and maybe your co-host story on one of them. And I know kind of Sean's story, unfortunately,
Yep.
because we're friends. But just like, whenever, like, one of my friends, like Sean as an example, like, he has a podcast, he goes on a lot of podcasts. I like to hear how other people interview him, because I've interviewed him before. But I'm like, what if they ask a question or something I didn't think of, and that's always something I'm looking for too. And I think y'all did that too, where it's like, oh, I didn't kind of think of that point. Like, that was a cool thought. Like, I wonder what that means. And like, I like being like engaged like that. So
Cool.
excellent stuff.
I think what a lot of people forget, or they just don't pay attention to, is like, it takes, and I'm not tooting my own horn. This is for all podcasters. It takes a lot of courage and strength to put yourself out there and take the risk, because
100%.
it's not like you're just talking to a friend in a room and that's the only person that sees this. Like, we get hate mail, we get, all these ignorant responses and stuff, for what we talk about, and people, making fun of the alcoholism and stuff. And those people are just stupid. They should probably go hide in a cave somewhere. But it's, I think the reason why I asked that question about what you thought was because this is something I think needs to become much bigger. I think the just reaching out to people through social media, because it is a tool, and just reaching out to people and connecting. And even if you don't know much about them, sitting down and having a conversation, because I learn something every time we do this. And, I'm learning a lot today about myself, some things that I didn't think of, uh, which is cool. I think the communication has died in this country. The willingness to be active listeners and to pay attention to what someone's saying and not the words, but the meaning behind it. And I think you are a truly genuine soul, and I really respect what you're doing, my man.
Oh man, I truly appreciate it. And let me say, let me correct myself from earlier. I should have asked you instead of telling you what I thought, right? And get your opinion on it, because no, because look, ultimately, like, again, like, my job and who I should be as a person is bringing about awareness, right? So, nobody likes being told what to do. So I might have asked you, like, hey man, like, what do you think about this concept of the shadow self and this, that, and the other? And so, because, like, this is why I say that, is because, and this is the dance in between the conversation when you talk about being present, right? When I said that, you automatically wanted to justify, like, what you felt like happened, and I discounted your story in that moment. I discounted you in that moment. Instead of I told you, instead of asking, if I would have asked, I would have heard more and then been able to ask better questions. So when we talk about, like, how do we communicate and being present like that, that's the kind of level I'm trying to get to with people, because I always want to have good interactions, and that comes down to my responsibility inside a conversation. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think if we're not trying to grow and get better, we're just being stagnant and life is miserable,
Well,
and
and life's it's change. It's constant change. And if you're not trying to change just a little bit, the cliche as it is, you're left behind. And then once you're left behind, you're isolated. And once you're isolated, now bad things are happening, right?
yeah.
You know what I mean? So you want to stay engaged with the world. It's very important.
Yeah, I mean, I've struggled with the format of this podcast for the last 10 months, almost a year now.
Totally normal, by the way. Totally
Yeah,
normal.
yeah. Like I have people telling me, well, why don't you market yourself this way? Why don't you market yourself that way? I'm like, number one, I'm not marketing me. I'm marketing the idea that we need to talk. We need to
Yeah.
have conversations. That's what I'm doing. Some people think I should focus on being an alcoholic in law enforcement. Like that's part of what I do. I do talk about that stuff, but the bigger part of it is, you said sharing a message. I think that's the biggest part of the kind of podcast that we're involved in. Like Joe Rogan's amazing. He's getting all kinds of crazy people on there, and he's awesome because he's a pioneer. You know, I'm not Joe Rogan. You're not Joe Rogan.
None
Like
of us are, by the way.
yeah, yeah, we have different messages to put out there, and I think it's still difficult. I think it's still a very troubled water to make a podcast about addiction recovery or about aging trendy and fun for people.
Yeah.
How do you approach that, trying to build your brand and build your podcast? I mean, if that's something you like really, because you said you do it because you like it. I do it because I like it, but I'm still trying to get bigger. I'm sure you are as well. How do you approach that dilemma of like, I know what I want to get across, but how do I make it attractive to people that they pay attention to me and listen and get the message?
Oh man, that's such a tough question. You're not gonna like my answer. I don't make things for other people. I make things for myself.
Hmm.
And if you like it, that's really awesome. And if you don't, you can tell me about it, and that would be interesting too. But I'm I don't like. I look at my podcast. Great if it makes money. That's awesome. I'm not gonna turn down money. That's crazy. But I look at it as it's this outlet that, like, not only has it helped me grow in my business, but it's helped me grow as a partner and as a father, and as to have something that gives me kind of this purpose that money can't buy, that I really enjoyed. Now, sometimes it feels like a job. Like, I put a
Yes.
lot of work into my podcast. So don't get me wrong. If there are times where I'm just like, oh, I really got to edit that episode, or I got to record something, or, whatever else it is. But I go, you know, like, what the results of this are, what the benefits of this is.
Hmm.
So, you know this is, um holding myself accountable even when there's nothing to really hold me accountable but myself, right? And ultimately, that's you floating out in the world, holding yourself accountable when there's really nothing holding you accountable. You could do whatever you want, but like there's this like a respect to the art, a respect to other humans in that sense of like, I'm going to respect this thing that I'm doing enough that I'm going to give it the time and attention it deserves, you know?
So you're like the geisha girl that's all pretty and dancing, and I'm like the sledgehammer that's putting nails through a wall. Like my thing is, and I mean that as a compliment. Like the way you approach things is cool. Like this like carefree, like really, really present attitude. I love it. But for me, it's like the reason why I want more viewers is because if people aren't watching, they're not hearing the message, and I
Sure.
can't help people if they don't watch. So
It's true.
I still do this for me because I know all the benefits for me, but a portion of it is to grow so that the message gets out there. Because at the end of the day, I didn't do this just to talk to people. I did this because there's important things that we need to talk about, and there's important messages that have to get across. And this is a platform to do that.
I think
Podcasting, I think,
you're
is
doing an excellent job, by the way.
well.
Excellent.
Thank you, and
Yes,
and
sir.
I mean, I appreciate that because, like you, it's a part time. It's like another job. I work
Yeah.
14 hours. I got to come home and put clips together and get them posted, and then you know how it goes. You're tired on a Sunday, and you're like, shit, I don't want to film this podcast right now. I got to get up and get at it and make this thing happen. Today was that day. Nothing but
Well, hey,
problems
I
with the
appreciate it.
cameras.
Thank you.
And nothing with problems with the cameras. As soon as I woke up, I'm like, shit, this is going to be a disaster. You know, um, and we both have two different styles. Like I said, I'm like a hammer and nails. Like I don't joke
Hey,
around. It
you're
takes
not
all
doing
kinds to make this work.
you're not doing anything wrong. You're just
Uh,
doing it different.
It
Yeah,
takes
you know what
it
I'm
takes
saying?
all of us. It takes
That's
everybody
right.
in the podcasting sphere to make these things work. And I think one of the things that's becoming a little bit better is promotion of other podcasts. The people that are doing this for money, you can tell who they are because they're selling products on their websites, they're selling products on their podcasts, they've got all these advertisers, and you know they they don't promote anyone else. Like Sean Livingston, I Am Redemption, man. He's one of my biggest supporters. He came up here when he came home to visit. He stopped in on a whim. We did a good episode, and then I've stayed in contact with him since he went back to Austin. He gives me pointers, and I listen. And everything I try to do now is I try to reach out to as many people as possible to promote other podcasts. Like success isn't in the podcasting sphere. I don't think success is a me thing. I think it's a we thing. I think the more people that we can get out there and get them seen, like I don't know if you've ever seen the Sober Fix podcast with Drew Moore. We started a collaboration together where we're trying to get together like every few weeks and do one together.
Nice.
Because we want to promote each other. I want people that go to my website to see his link and go to his website. If I was out this just for me, I wouldn't give a shit. And I think that's the coolest thing about podcasting and the movement that's going on right now is that everybody's starting to get out of their own way and realize that this is a game that everybody can play. And
And
it's
there's enough for everyone to eat. That's always my thing. It's like, this is not a scarcity thing. Like there's enough space for everyone. You know what I mean? Like eh, I I've only benefited by trying to help other podcasters, influencers, entertainers, or whatever. I've always benefited in some form of fashion. You know what I mean? Now you can always say I also don't ever do anything like negative. So like maybe that, but I mean like it's only been great. Now there are people that like totally like no showed me or whatever, but like I mean that's just part of the world. That doesn't have to do with podcasting. That's just people are like that, right? And so I just understand that that person's not as serious about this as me, or they're not dedicated, or they don't want to be part of this, or they don't want to interact with me. But there's so many other people that do. So I'm going to try to promote all the people that want to promote me. I promote people that don't want to promote me. That's fine. Like I mean, like I'm not going to lose when I'm doing it as an extension of who I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's a really important concept is the fact that, these podcasts, especially ones like yours and mine and I Am Redemption and the Sober Fix, you know, w- those ones I named are people in addiction, people recovering. And, you know, I've said it before up here in Pittsburgh, the recovery network is small and very, very protected. You know, good luck finding a cop with alcoholism to come on the show. No, it's tough, and I think that what you're doing is amazing, my man. I think, the aging thing and the podcasting thing and putting the best foot forward and trying to help other people is what it comes down to for me as well in this podcast world, is to get messages out there. So hopefully people will come check you out, get to know you a little bit better. But why don't you plug your socials and your website real quick so everybody knows what they are?
Yes, sir. You can go to heyjustbe.com. That's heyjustbe.com. And everything is there. But if you don't want to go there, you can go to heyjustbe.com. Hey Just Be on just about anything. I think YouTube, everywhere. It's Hey Just Be. And then if you want to go directly to the podcast, it's on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. And it's Just Be with Scottie G.
Sweet. Hey, if you're out there in the Austin, Texas area and you're looking for someone to help you enjoy the stages of life, give Scotty a call, send him a message, meet up with him. I think the man's doing some great work. I thank you so much for stopping in here today.
Hey,
I would love
hey,
to talk to you again down the road if you have the free time.
you got to
But
come here. You got to come do the show here in the
listen, man,
garage.
I've been talking to Sean. I'm trying to get down there for a couple days to do Sean's, and I wanted to go down and do two
You
addicts of
let
Lamar.
Let
You
me
know,
we'll just 3 in a row. Boom, boom, boom. Will you just tell me when you're gonna be here? We'll hit them 3 days in a row.
I'm hoping to do that, but we'll stay in touch down the road, folks. Once again, Scotty Gassner, Just Be with Scotty G. Amazing work you're doing, my friend. Any last words for the audience?
Hey, no, I appreciate today. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Mark.
All right, guys, just remember there's always a seat at the round table for you here. If you're not listening, you're not learning. We love you, and we'll see you next time.